Last week I did a long and involved video about very abrasive, dissonant, microtonal black metal. This video is pretty much the complete opposite end of the spectrum. It's about one chord that I like in Deafheaven's Breakthrough Sunbather. Here's that chord. So let's talk about what's going on. This is tonal music, and the first part of the phrase is this meandering D major thing. And then we land on this B minor chord. Then we get that one chord I like. Then another chord. If I'm just naming triads like a music theory robot, this sequence goes B minor, D augmented, A sharp diminished. And if I'm a slightly more advanced music theory robot, I see that D augmented has two of the important pitches from an F sharp chord. They share the A sharp and the F sharp. And because of this, the augmented one chord is a common substitute for 5 of 6. So in this case, a common substitute for an F sharp major chord, which acts as 5 of B minor. And an A sharp diminished triad has 3 out of 4 pitches of an F sharp 7 chord. So an F sharp 7 chord has F sharp, A sharp, C sharp, E natural, and the A sharp diminished chord has all of those except for F sharp. So basically at a kind of zoomed out level, we have this phrase that goes from 1, D major, to 6, B minor, minor 6, and then we get 2 flavors of 5 of 6 with the D augmented, A sharp diminished. And if I'm a music theory robot who's read a few harmony textbooks, I can call this 5 of 6 a back-relating dominant, because instead of preceding the chord that it's the dominant of, it comes after. Maybe it would sound a little more square if the versions of 5 of 6 came before the B minor, like this. But instead it goes like this, with the 5 of 6 substitutes coming after. As I tell music theory students when I teach, learning to be a music theory robot, which is basically learning a set of complicated strategies for labeling idiosyncratic and ambiguous situations using a bunch of very context-dependent vocabulary, is only a starting point. So let's go further and try to connect the music theory stuff to how the music feels. On a zoomed in level, I think I like this progression and the D augmented chord in particular, because instead of feeling like a dominant in opposition to the B minor chord that is tonicizing, it's always felt to me like an intensification or like an inflection of this B minor chord. Instead of moving to a new harmony, it feels like the B minor chord is being like bent into a new shape and then bent again into that A sharp diminished. I think it's so easy to hear these connections because D augmented, while a common substitute for F sharp major, is actually a little ambiguous. So the chord has 3 notes, D, F sharp, and A sharp, but out of those 3, D belongs pretty squarely to B minor. It's the chord defining minor third in B minor. F sharp is shared by both B and F sharp major, and A sharp belongs squarely to F sharp, as its chord defining third. So the chord kind of straddles tonic and dominant, only a half step away from either. No wonder it feels kind of like a dissonant intensification of B minor. And also the way they voice it in the track, the only thing that changes between these two chords is that the bass note moves down from B to A sharp. Again, another reason why the chords sound linked instead of oppositional. Zooming out, I love how on Sunbather, traditional black metal techniques, so tremolo picking, washes of sound, blast beats, etc., sound warm and saturated instead of the cold and abstract way that they feel for a lot of black metal bands. For the record, I like both, of course. This album always feels like a bright and sunny winter day. A lot of this has to do with things outside of the sound of the recording, of course. So the band's from California, The last time I saw them, they covered the stage with flowers, and the Sunbather album cover is notoriously a kind of pastel coral pink. But I think some of it has to do with their harmony. The motion from B minor to D augmented in this riff sounds wrenching, like the chord is kind of being pulled apart, stuck in between being like an inflected B minor chord on one hand and a substitute for 5 of 6 on the other. And then I think that from wrenching, it's a small leap to emotional, and from emotional to warm. I already predict that someone will comment something really clever, like, imagine thinking Deafheaven is a black metal band. So here's my preemptive response. I understand that clever put-downs like this are a way of trying to gain online clout, or, if you're being fancy, subcultural capital, because sarcasm and casual disdain are valuable currencies on the internet for making people seem cool and smart, and because in metal, being a real exclusive stickler for subgenre is a maybe increasingly old-fashioned way of showing other people how cool and metal you are. And look, I get it. The internet and music scenes are theaters, and everyone, including me, has their own way of trying to influence how others see them. I just want to clarify 2 things. First, I think these comments miss the points of these videos and how genres work. I will never make a video saying this band is or is not a black metal band because of these musical facts or something like that. Because genre is a social thing, and kind of the whole point of it is that it's always an area of contestation, and the boundaries are always being disagreed over. And it's normally less because of the amount of tremolo picking and more because of what the album cover and the band members and fans look like that people decide if something is or is not black metal. The other more important parting point that I want to make, though, is that while there are plenty of legitimate reasons to like or not like a band, I just think it's kind of silly to let subgenre authenticity be one of them. Subgenres are useful shorthands in the sense that if someone is recommending me a band, I like to know roughly what to expect, and they're very interesting things to look at from a sociological perspective, in the sense that understanding how people use them and why often reveals kind of deeper value structures. But the extent to which a band sticks to typical subgenre signifiers doesn't a priori have anything to do with how worth listening to they are. Hopefully that's something that was already obvious to you, but it's something that I probably would have been better off hearing earlier on in my metal journey. Well, cheers to the Governor, and it was very nice to meet you. See ya.